Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's conversation on the YouTube Creators Hub podcast. I'm joined today in this conversation portion of the show by, I would say he's a friend of mine now. He's also a supporter of mine. I like to say that before the jump. David has been a part of our Discord community now for a little while, one of the most active people of our group, and he has a very successful YouTube channel called the LeftBraniedArtist. And David is a computer technology guy by trade, but he's always enjoyed watching other people create art. In 2019, he started seeing acrylic paint pouring on social media and decided to try it out for himself and was immediately hooked. There wasn't a lot of information on how to paint pour though, so he started the LeftBraniedArtist blog in 2018 and the YouTube channel in 2020. And so we'll definitely talk about that story and that journey. But David, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to this conversation because I have kind of viewed your channel from afar for a long while now. Can you just tell us the origin story of the LeftBraniedArtist and kind of how it came to be as far as the YouTube channel?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, my brother and I used to live next door to each other, and we were Cub Scout den masters. Cub Scouts are 8 to 12-year-old boys. We'd do all sorts of different activities with them. And one time I had been seeing this paint pouring on Instagram and places like that. And I thought, man, that looks really cool and looks like something I could do. So my brother and I decided we were going to do that as an activity with these Cub Scouts. So we laid out some plastic, got some canvases, mixed up some paint, and just had a marvelously dirty time with them out on my basketball court. And I have been hooked ever since. I started painting all the time and just trying to figure out how to do different things that I saw other artists do. They weren't really explaining what they were doing. So like I said, I started a blog first. I maintained that for a while. And then I started to, I knew because it's such a visual thing that some YouTube videos in my blog was really why I started the channel, to just help people kind of walk them through how to do things. And once I'd done that, I actually stopped working on the blog and have almost exclusively gone to YouTube just because I love being able to do it on video instead of just with words.
So the name of the channel is LeftBraniedArtist, which I love. Such a clever name. You got a great channel banner, a great profile image. Can you explain just briefly what acrylic paint pouring is exactly?
Yeah, absolutely. So acrylic paint pouring, essentially we're taking acrylic paint, we're mixing it with what we call a pouring medium to make it thinner, to make it more like, because paint is generally very thick. So we're making it thinner, and then pouring is we're mixing that paint in different ways, getting it onto the canvas, and it's kind of making abstract art that way. Some people just pour it into a cup and then pour it out of the cup, all mixed together onto the canvas. Sometimes we pour it through a strainer. Sometimes we pour it on the canvas and then use like a hair dryer to push it around to give different effects. And that is essentially what pouring is.
So you're almost 80,000 subscribers deep. You're right at 79,000 subscribers as the recording of this episode. You haven't even uploaded 200 videos yet, so you are certainly ahead of the game. I want to ask you this question. What do you think has attributed to your success the most? Do you think it's the unique niche in that there wasn't very much out there on the topic? Obviously, we all think we have a certain bit of skill and a little bit that we bring to the table, but what do you think has made the LeftBraniedArtist channel so successful in such a short span of time in regards to YouTube? Because, 4 years in YouTube time is nothing, right? A lot of people spend 4 years on their channel and don't even get 1,000 subscribers. So what would you attribute it to for your channel?
I think it's because there's actually some really successful acrylic pour channels, but they are entertainment channels. They're not tutorial channels. And that's where I saw the gap, and really where I focused my attention is really doing the teaching, and teaching in not teaching in a way that somebody, the channel name is LeftBraniedArtist because I'm a technology guy. Computers, computer games, I've been doing that for years and years. And So when I learn something, I want to know step by step what's happening, and I want to know why I am doing those steps. And somebody that's artistic, they just know, they feel it. And so they're just doing it. They don't understand why. And so I started making videos that said, you know what? When you add glue as a pouring medium, for example, then it's going to cause this effect. And so I can easily tell somebody that hasn't ever done paint pouring how to do it in very easy terms and why stuff is happening, which they just weren't getting anywhere else.
When you're doing instructional stuff on YouTube, what are some of the most important things to remember? I think of things like keep it concise. Don't do a stupid 20-second intro. There's a lot of things that, when someone searches for a video on YouTube, for instance, let's say they're trying to build their first PC and they want to learn how to install the CPU. They may Google or YouTube how to install a CPU for beginners. So they're coming there to learn how to install that part into a computer, right? So by the end of that 8 to 10 minute video, they need to know exactly what they came there for. So how do you make sure that the people who come to your videos who may be like you, I mean, I'm going to be honest, it's kind of like with planting things around the house. Like, some people have a green thumb. I think that I do. My wife doesn't. Now, my wife is very artistic and creative when it comes to like painting and drawing. I am not. I can do stick men and stick figures, but that's about the extent of it. So how do you take these people who may not feel that they're really, qualified or have the talents or skills and get them by the end of your videos? Because it seems like a lot of your community is like you, who didn't come from the original artistic or artist background.
So a lot of that I have to blame on my mom. She was a school teacher, taught English for 30 years or so. And I frequently went to her classes, listened to her discussions and things like that. And just the way she talks to people, even though she is highly educated, the way she talks to people is very familiar. And, she never talks down on people. And I think that makes the biggest difference is, one, when I go into something, I'm always assuming that nobody knows anything. And so everything I talk about has to be from the ground up. So I don't start in the middle. And that's where you lose people, especially with tutorials. If you're talking about Excel and you start it in and say, oh yeah, you're going to do a formula and you're going to do this and this and this.
Yes.
Well, what's a formula?
Right.
So I really, in all my videos, I assume that my 11-year-old daughter is going to be learning, and if she can't learn from it, that I've failed.
I love that. I feel that is such an important thing to remember, because I remember early on in my tutorials, I would do exactly what you said. I would come to the video with expectations that these people would already know or have an understanding of how to use Photoshop or how to install a bit of software. But at the end of the day, my most popular tutorials were the bare bones basics of showing people how to do the bare minimum and then getting them up to speed. And so understanding that on YouTube is important. Now, what is something that you wish you would have known sooner, David? Now that you are almost 200 videos into this, what would you say, man, I wish I would have known that sooner?
I wish I would have known that I needed a friend to talk to YouTube about.
Interesting.
I have a couple of artists. I've taken a couple courses with blogging, and that course, it's called Project 24, but they started doing YouTube stuff also. And I found some people in the art niche that were part of that community. And I've been having, monthly phone calls with them. As you mentioned, I'm part of your discourse, and there's a bunch of people in that have given me some great feedback on my channel. But that, I think, having somebody that's outside of my channel, but in the industry, to be able to critique and to get suggestions from is probably the biggest thing for me.
Why do you think that is important? And give me concrete examples of, you were quick to that answer, so you obviously know why that has been so helpful for you. Why is it important for us as creators to bring people beside us who are doing YouTube and are doing the same things we're doing? What have been the benefits for you?
So I almost all of my thumbnails I run by these at least two other people, and I have put a couple into our community. And while sometimes I don't change my thumbnails, I get feedback immediately that says, well, did you think about this that I would have never thought about myself without asking? And yes, in the past I have put out a thumbnail and a title and just seen how it works and kind of adjusted, done A/B testing with TubeBuddy to see how that works. But I think having that even before putting the first thumbnail out has really helped. In addition to that, the questions that people ask me on about YouTube, for somebody that knows YouTube, I had the other day I was going to do a video on creating a frame for my canvas, like a super cheap frame, not one that you buy online. And I hadn't even thought about going to the hardware store and buying molding to do it with. But I gave my idea to some of the guys that I was talking to, and one of them said, "Oh yeah, I made it out of wood from Home Depot." I'm like, that's a great idea. And that video right now is probably 2 or 3 times where my video would normally be. That was 2 weeks ago or so. So
that's awesome. Thank you for that story. I appreciate that. Stories sometimes can really help us understand more about kind of what our answers that we're giving really mean. I find it so interesting that you took a niche in a space that you really weren't familiar with as far as the art space, and went kind of crazy with it and kind of tackled it from a different perspective. That's probably the most unique thing. That's why I love your channel so much, is that you have found that success. Now, what has been the hardest thing for you as far as the YouTube aspect? We're going to talk in a minute about time management, because this isn't what you do full time, right? So you are having to juggle a lot of things, right? And so what are some of the harder things for you, David, the person, when it comes to the YouTube production and the YouTube side of things?
Consistency is probably number one. It's so hard to find enough time, especially when I'm editing my own videos. That's the hardest thing for me, is one, to get the video done every week, but two, the editing just takes so long. I did mention that on one of our phone calls that we had recently about how people found an editor, and that's kind of where I'm in the place to hopefully free up some of my time, which should help me be more consistent with my videos. That's probably the hardest thing for me.
Consistency is one of the common answers that you hear with that question. So now let's kind of go on the back end of that and talk about, this is not your full-time gig. You are not a creator full-time. You have a 9 to 5. What are some time management skills that you've put into play? What have been things that have helped you try to be more consistent on the YouTube channel?
So 2 things. I always have a list of ideas. I have an Excel spreadsheet that I have that I just put those ideas. I need to move it somewhere online so I can add, do a Notion board or something like that. So
now you're talking my language. That's what I do. I have a Notion board, and that has been, not to interrupt you, but that has been one of the greatest things that I've done. Now, you can use whatever tool you want. You may not like Notion. You may get kind of bogged down by how kind of intense Notion is, but I use a Notion board, and I have a hub for just video ideas. And so I have the app on my phone. I can be in the shower. It can be late at night. I'll pop the app up on my phone. Everything's online, and I have a little template that I put in there. I put the title, and it all goes on a running list, kind of like what you do on Excel. But yeah, David, you need to get that online. So I didn't mean to interrupt you. I love my Notion kind of creator hub.
Yeah, exactly. So I put them in my notes in my phone, but then I have to transfer it. And it's just, I need to have something that I can do on my phone. I mean, I already read in line at the grocery store. I'm a as you can see here, I'm a reading fanatic. So I love having my phone around, and I have ideas in the weirdest places.
I do as well. Yeah.
And then so that's one of the big things. The other thing is I make sure that all of my ideas I have at least talked to somebody about before I do it, because there's, like I've mentioned before, there's always little insights that people give me that I would have never thought about beforehand. I try and do I don't read from a script, but I try and have some bullet points. It just makes doing the edit so much easier. One of the difficulties, again, that I have with painting is because I'm doing stuff in real time. it's hard, and it requires my attention. It's hard for me to look over at a
Had a
bullet
script or
list of
something.
things
Yeah.
I want to talk about, and I always come up with other things that I want to talk about, especially when on my bullet point I didn't think about, well, what if they don't know what, for example, a pouring medium is? I kind of have to explain that every time in the video. So trying to figure out how to remember little things like that during the video. There's just so many little things that you can do to make a video better. Sometimes it's overwhelming.
How about family? How do you balance that? Do you say to yourself, I'm only going to give myself 15 hours this week to work on content creation, and if I'm not done, I'm not done? What have you put in place? I had to put what I call guardrails up to where, there's a set time, because if I didn't have a time at night, especially early on in doing voice acting and things like that kind of stem from my YouTube channel, I would have clients message me because they're all over the world. They'd message me at 8, 9 o'clock. People want to do YouTube coaching at like 10 p.m. my time. And early on, I need the money, right? And so I didn't put those guardrails up, and my family suffered. I'm going to be honest, early on when my wife and I were first married and had our first child, but now I've put some guardrails up. What have you done?
So I generally am recording, like tonight I'll record. I record on a Thursday night. I wish I was far ahead, but I'm not. So I'm recording this week's video today. But I record on a Thursday night, and then usually I edit after the kids have gone to bed, 8, 9 o'clock, and I do that for 2 or 3 hours. I do it on Thursday night because I usually need Friday night to do an edit, and then Saturday morning is my normal posting time. Some things my daughter loves. So I have an 11-year-old and a 19-year-old. So my daughter loves to paint. So sometimes I bring her in and let her choose the colors that I'm doing. And so she can be a part of kind of this side business that I have. She always asks after every video. I have to, shut everything down and bring my wife and my daughter in to let them see what I'm doing. So so that way they understand that it's important to me, but they also are part of the process.
Absolutely.
And I try not to do anything Sunday through Wednesday other than ideation and maybe conversations with other people. Sometimes I work on one thing that I'm trying to do right now better is to work on my title and thumbnail before I even start. Even though I don't have a picture of my art, I'll substitute the picture later, but getting the if I have text and arrows and all that kind of stuff beforehand. I'm not very good at it, but that's kind of the 10% better that I'm trying to get this month.
David, I think about it sometimes, and you can kind of respond how you will, but I think about it when anything in life, especially content creation, but anything really, if you're working downhill and you're not always against the grain or you're going uphill. And let me explain my analogy. Like with this podcast, like me and David are recording right now on a Thursday. I've already got a bunch of title ideas in my Notion board. I've already got the thumbnail for the video version of this podcast already done. I did that this morning early when I was doing my work. I also did the description. I put your bio. I put all of your links. I've got it kind of as a draft in the podcast host. And I tell you all this to say, when I know that I've got a lot of that stuff done and I can split it up into smaller chunks like what you said, you're doing the ideation on Monday. You're doing some of the fun stuff like trying to play around with titles and ideas, Sunday through Wednesday, whatever. You're not always fighting that battle of, man, oh, I gotta hurry. And I've been there where I've got to release an episode on Friday morning at 6 a.m. and I don't have anything, or I don't even have a guest, right? I'm going uphill. But as a content creator, if you're really doing it and you don't have as much resistance, you're going to find that you're free and you're open and you can create better content. How would you feel about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had way too many nights where it's 1, 2 in the morning and I'm trying to get that video done because I know that consistency is important for YouTube and it's important for me to keep going. But I want as least amount of those as possible.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the business side of it for a minute. 80,000 subscribers. I know nothing about like CPMs or RPMs for art content, so this is going to be new news for me. Let's talk about monetization. Speak about, well, just before we even go far into it, how many views do you average on a day? Like a normal day for your channel, what do you normally average?
So I'm about 5,000 views a day, give or take.
So let's just say
between
5
100, 150 a month.
Okay. So 100, 150,000 views a month. And what is the ad revenue on a channel in your niche with that amount of views per month?
It's about, I mean, for me, it's about $10 per thousand views.
Okay.
So, it'll go up to almost 20 here in the next couple months just because of the holiday season, and then it'll go down earlier in the year, to 8 or 9, but it sits right in that range.
Sure. So, I mean, that's not bad. I mean, that's really not bad, and it's motivation. People always say to me, they're like, oh, you always say in your podcast, don't be motivated by money, but you kind of talk out of both sides of your mouth because you're like, that's kind of motivation. Well, yeah, I mean, of course it's motivation, right? Like, I'm not saying I don't want you to make money. What I'm saying is it shouldn't be the first thing that you think of when you start the channel, right? It shouldn't be the complete navigator to what you're doing. But dadgum, if you're not motivated by, I don't know. I mean, I don't think you'd be human, right? Like, motivation by financial terms is a thing. And I know on my channel, when I have better months than others, I'm like, all right, good. I did something well. I put out some really good videos this week. So what are ways that you're monetizing? Talk about kind of the rundown of your monetization methods.
So I have obviously YouTube ad revenue. I have affiliates. A lot of that right now is through Amazon, so it's not huge, but it's a couple $100 a month, and that's between the blog and the YouTube channel. I have a membership that I am in beta with, so I have 20 people in that membership, so it's a couple $100 a month generally. And then I have some really good affiliates specifically for courses having to do with painting. Not necessarily pouring. Some of them have to do with just painting in general, color theory, things like that. Some of them are specific to pouring, some of my colleagues in the industry. And those are honestly bigger than my other stuff.
So what would be an average month for you? You don't have to tell me exactly, but money-wise on the channel, what would be an average month? Let's just say last month, for example.
So last month it was close to $3,000.
Mm-hmm. So that's a channel that's not even at 100,000 subscribers, not even at 200 videos uploaded yet. And let's just say some months are bad, and let's just say he's averaging, say, $2,500 a month with all of his monetization methods put together. That is a great side hustle, right?
Absolutely.
And you know this, David, as do I. You are a step or two away from being able to reanalyze this and say, could I do this full time, right? Could this be something that if I add a newsletter, if I add a course myself, if this membership thing takes off, I remember early on in my days when my wife and I were discussing it and she was pregnant with our first child, we would talk late into the night and I would say, man, and I'm sure it got all over her nerves, but I would say, YouTube's doing really well this month, but I don't want to count on that. I'd like to just pretend like that revenue doesn't even come in, but the voiceover work's coming in, the podcast sponsorships are coming in, and I can see it getting up to a point to where I don't need to work anymore. And of course that would scare her to death. But once I got to that point, she was excited, she was proud of me, and she kind of pushed me to keep doing what I was doing and kind of running my business. How do you feel about that now that you are that close of like, man, a couple more $1,000, a few more thousand, I could really consider doing this thing full time?
I have always wanted to do it full time. I mean, once the blog took off, even before the YouTube channel, once the blog took off and I was getting 30, 40, 50,000 page views on the blog, I was, I've always been an entrepreneur, but even then that scares the bejeebus out of my wife.
Absolutely.
I can tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think about it all the time. I would love to do this full time. And I have ideas for other channels that I think could do really well. I just need the time. So
yeah, I mean, listen, you love to read, you love books, you also you have a lot of the same hobbies that I have. You like video games. I enjoy, I've talked about this before. If I ever had just free time where I don't have to worry about money or, bills or things like that, I would love to start a channel about, gaming or putting together PCs or like doing some technology stuff that I just love to do, but that's just not where I'm at right now. But if you had some time freed up, you might could start a podcast or you might could do this or that, right? So if you're listening to this right now and you are where David is, or maybe you're a couple steps below where he is, just be motivated by this, that, it didn't happen overnight, did it, David? It was kind of a slow burn.
But it definitely is slow burn. I had 50 videos out before I had that first video really take off.
Mhm.
And then it's just been a steady climb from there. Um, and just a tip about that I mentioned in our community is I've been doing videos that were really popular a year ago, 2 years ago, redoing them with the new knowledge that I have, and those videos are going gangbuster for me.
Yeah, I had a note to discuss that because we did talk about that on our mastermind call. Um, Explain that in detail. What exactly are you doing?
So, for example, the best video I have is a beginner's acrylic paint pouring. I had a video right now that has almost 500,000 views on it that was about 2 years ago when I did it. And 2 years ago, I was still what I would consider a very beginner paint pouring artist, but nobody was teaching these really basic things about pouring. So I took that video and I took all of the knowledge that I've had since then and put it into another, and this is a quite long video. I think it was 20 minutes or so, which is, most of my videos are between 5 and 10 minutes, and put all that information in and, gave it a better thumbnail and put it out there. And one of the things, because of my community, also, I get a lot of external traffic on initial videos because people are in forums and places like that posting. And this one especially got a lot of notice from the community, but also YouTube just immediately found the audience. And I mean, that video right now is a couple weeks old and it has 20,000 views, which is way more than normal.
So the name of the video I think is "Stop Watching Videos and Start Acrylic Pouring." The
That's the
video
one.
is just 9 seconds, under an hour. Which, if you know tutorial videos, I love when I can get videos above 8, 10, 12 minutes because that means I can put a mid-roll ad in there, right? So listen, if you watch YouTube, don't crucify me, right? If you're like, oh, I hate mid-roll ads, I hate people like you. If you become a creator, if you are a creator, you will think about those things, okay? So if you have a longer video, you can make more money because the watch time on that video is going to jump up. And do you know what I noticed about that video also, David, is that you were averaging around, say, 3 to 5 to 6,000 views for the videos before that one. Now the algorithm loved that video. Your video after that is at 7,000 views. The one after that is 35,000. The one after that is 6,000. And the one 5 days ago was already at 5,000. So that's how the YouTube algorithm works, right? You get one video, it goes gangbusters. YouTube picks it up. The next, they're going to say, oh, okay, there's something there, and we're going to start presenting the next videos. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing about those videos is also they're the same thing. They're 4 or 5 videos that I'm just kind of recreating from the past that have done well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think not only are they video ideas that I knew would work, that I knew I had an audience for, but YouTube, because of the previous ones, also knows that. So I think I get a little bit more love in addition to the compounding effect of being consistent.
The reason why I love our mastermind calls is because I want you to know that I took your advice and I have some ideas and some videos in motion of things that I've done in the past. I had a video showing people how to live stream on YouTube using a specific software. The video has almost 5 million views. It's from like 6, 7 years ago. And I know YouTube loves it when I do streaming tutorials because very few people do. And the ones that do them are not that great, not high quality. And so I've already got that video already kind of bullet pointed out, and I'm ready to upload the new version because I do believe, like you said, I found that to be the case as well. When you have these videos kind of perform well years ago, you need to do some updates to them and make them even better. So I absolutely love that. We're already at the 30-minute mark, which is fine. I like to keep it kind of around 30 to 40 minutes, but I want to ask you a final question. What's next for you, David, and your channel? We obviously know that where you are with the money and where you possibly could be going full time in the next couple of years, but what are you looking at short and long term for the channel?
So short term, the community and getting a course really for beginners. And there's actually some really good courses for beginners out there. So my course is actually one step beyond beginner. I've already started doing acrylic pouring. How do I troubleshoot? Because that's where a lot of my video ideas come from, all these problems that people bring up in the comments. And I have a formula that I personally use that I'm turning into a course, which is essentially going to be the magnet for the community. They'll essentially be paying for the community, but the course is part of that. And
Yes.
that's short term. what I'm looking for. And long term, obviously, is if I can get that to work, is to one, go full time, and two, I have a couple channels that I want to do with my son, who's 19, that I think would really be beneficial both for him and for us in general.
So I honestly think that you're leaving a lot of money on the table right now because you don't have a course, because those videos that that are showing people how to get started with acrylic pouring and kind of where they are in the process, I think that a very large portion of them would buy that course from you. And so now you're getting all these views. You need to really start getting your call to action ready and getting that kind of landing page ready for your course of, you like this video, you like what you learned here, here's some free stuff, boom, let's put you into my funnel, right? So David, I think you've got a bright future ahead, and I think it's going to be just a matter of time before you can take this to the next level. Any final closing remarks to folks listening to this? You know kind of where people are. I mean, they're listening to this from all gambits of the spectrum. They could either be thinking about starting YouTube, they maybe just started, maybe they're trying to grow or trying to monetize their channel. What would be your parting words?
So like I mentioned before, if you need to find a buddy or a community, you need to be somewhere where you can ask people questions about YouTube to really help you out. I think that has been the most helpful thing that I've done on my YouTube journey. And you just get so much from having other people that understand where you're at. I know your family, generally they're there for you and they want to give you support, but they really don't know the business. So
No, I could not agree more. David, you have been a wonderful guest, as I knew that you would be. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your time. And again, if you would like to find him on YouTube, it is LeftBraniedArtist, and you can't miss him. He's on there. I'll have all the links in the show notes. And David, we appreciate it, and we'll talk to you next time.
thank you very much.